Some say it grew from our malice and indifference. Some say it was retribution from the heavens. All we know is the pandemic began somewhere. Somewhere cursed, dark, and filled with sorrow. Future generations will wonder how it all started. We will tell them the infection began with Podcast Zero.
Ello is awake for this one. What a bunch of assholes in the chat.
We are live. That was perfect timing, Ello. Couldn't have been better beautiful timing. Hello and welcome everybody to Podcast Zero at H1Z1 podcast, where we have a special setup tonight. We have Mr. Matt Broome, the art director at SOE for H1Z1, and of course, we have our friend Skylatron, Co-Carnage, Ellohime, Sergeant Stockus, and myself, Mr. Geek Domo. And, yeah, I didn't mute myself this time. Isn't that great? So Mr. Matt Broome, welcome to the show.
Hey, you guys. Good to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do over at SOE?
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm an art director at SOE, but on H1Z1, I'm the character lead. So that basically means, like, your consumables, your wearables, the characters, the zombies, and all that stuff. Me and Ryan Zimmerman, who works with me on the project, we do all the character-related assets in the game.
Mm-hmm. So tonight we're doing a special thing. Mr. Broome, or Matt, what do you want to go by? Do you have like a nickname on the internet?
Matt.
Matt, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to give you that nickname.
Oh,
I'm not sure if it's street legal, but Matt will work out fine here.
Matt is
we
working.
like things that are street illegal, so please. No, I'm just
I like this guy already.
Matt's in the background, and he is working on Bob right now. So can you give us a little bit of an update on what's going on with Mr. Bob?
Yeah, Bob's pretty exhausting. Here, matter of fact, let me. I'll turn on all the layers and stuff like that, so you guys can get an idea. What I'm working on right now is just working on his lower rib cage to his pelvis, and just kind of cutting him up and cutting into the flesh. Okay. So what's a little bit different than Bobby's a little more beat up than Fred. So I'll turn on all his layers so you guys can get an idea of what he looks like. Gave him a nice outdoor flannel shirt, which is like perfect for zombies, which has been a lot of fun. And then I'll pop on his head. Let's give this a second to load.
I'm seeing a lot of physical layers, but what about his emotional layers? Does he have a lot of emotional layers that you really influence the characters?
He was a mailman. He was the first one to go zombie and postal. He checked out early.
Gotcha.
Oh, we gave this guy hair too, by the way. So let me go to the hair layer.
Special delivery. You're a zombie.
Let me see. Let me line this up on the screen so they can actually see this guy. So unlike Fred, he's got hair. So the next thing I'll do is start splashing a little bit of blood in his hair, and go in and change up his teeth. And he's taking a lot more damage to his face. Then I'll do a nice little pretty render so you guys can actually see what this guy's details look like. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just basically working on going in and beating up the skin around where he's taking a lot of damage. Then after that, I'll go in and start doing the same thing for his pants and shoes, ripping up his pants. He's going to be a lot more Walking Dead than Fred was.
How much of this actually makes it into the real game? Because the detail here is amazing. And is there like a little bit of loss of quality as we go through like multiple compressions or anything like that? Does it kind of lose some?
Yeah, it does. I mean, basically, so in ZBrush right now, ZBrush has its own post rendering process, which means even though it looks a certain way here, we're actually seeing the materials on this character. I'll give you an example. So we'll do something fun. I'll turn his skin into like a chrome, right? And if you turn his skin into chrome, it'll look perfectly chrome because of the lighting environment in this program.
Mm-hmm.
It would never be able to go into the game that way, but it's good for editing all the details. So what will happen is I'll sculpt him in here about 20 million polys, but this is actually the in-game model that I'm working on because all these surface layers, they'll get translated. And here, I'll show you exactly what this looks like. So you're probably familiar with a lot of in-game textures and stuff like that, and what the texture sheets actually look like. So I'll display him without his hair in a way that looks more familiar to people who are used to seeing texture sheets. So let's do that right now. And I hit the morph button. So this is actually what he looks like right there. So the cool thing about this is I can work on him flat, or I can work on him as a three-dimensional object with lighting conditions and materials. So a lot of this does go in game. So if you look at Fred, you're basically seeing right now the 2048 of the texture. And the character's texture goes in the game at 1024, which is about a 50% resolution cut.
When you first started, you probably used to draw on, before you had ZBrush, you probably used to do your texture maps that way?
Yeah, well, what'll happen is even now, I'll take this character and I'll throw him to another program with the share screen technology. Not sure if it'll follow me, but I'll take this and I'll throw the three-dimensional model to like Photoshop or whatever post-processing program, compositing program I want to use, and I'll paint him again. So like areas, say super detailed areas like this right here. So if I want to
jaw, it actually looks scarier, but
well, that was
no comment.
That was kind of the thing. Check this out. Check this out from the side, right? So the idea will be this will all be so much blood down here. Mm-hmm. His bottom jaw, it'll disappear. Ooh. It'll kind of look like those jawless dudes that were following what's her face around in Walking Dead.
Michonne.
Yeah, thank you. It'll look kind of like that. But what I want to do is basically you want to get the hair to frame the face. Mm-hmm. And start tearing away the face in a way where it complements each other. Let me make my cursor a little bigger so they can actually see it. So you can
those
see like
teeth are vicious, bro.
Yeah.
Look at those things.
Here, I'll turn off the other layers so you guys can see. So you can take a look at the teeth. Believe it or not, these teeth actually took 4 days to do.
I was about to say that those teeth look awesome.
Look awesome. Yeah, they look great.
Yeah,
I was really impressed when I saw them.
Thanks, man. I mean, so this is what his teeth cage looks like right here, without the rest of his head in, which is kind of to me, it's kind of interesting to see this kind of stuff because you might see this for a millisecond on the screen when he opens it.
Oh, I forgot real quick in chat. Yes, everybody. This is an open Q&A session with Matt, so we're gonna do this right now. We're just kind of basically just introducing him and talking to him a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about Podcast Zero itself. I'm sorry, in H1Z1 itself, and then we will go into the Q&A session a little bit later on. So go ahead and start asking questions. Just type them in the chat in brackets. So just put bracket, question, bracket, and then the words afterwards that you want to ask. And then my moderator Bod's in the chat, and he will grab them and put them into here.
It's cool to see the decay and like the rotting look, to the teeth. It looks so good.
Thanks, man. No, it's really appreciated. I mean, it's kind of funny. The first guy, Fred, as he was named on Reddit, which, by the way, is still hilarious to me, and then Bob, who was named on Twitch. Fred is kind of like a test case scenario. So you have to basically test out the wearable system. Where can he take damage? How much cover can you put on a zombie? But on this guy, once we got that stuff in the game and we saw how much we can get away with, you just go to town. So on a second zombie, I can like go totally Walking Dead and, drape blood on him, wet the blood around his clothes, like when you start getting in up close on him, wet the blood around where he took damage. I mean, that's the fun stuff. That's the fun stuff for sure.
It's scary.
Let me ask you about the timeline here, because wasn't it supposed to be like 20 years or something like that, and then it's now been dropped down to just a few weeks? Is that right?
Well, it's kind of funny. Initially, some of the stuff coming out was 20, but a lot of that was really more open conversation on places like Reddit and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we had not really nailed down any of those numbers specifically on the dev side. So when a lot of that stuff started getting traction, we really wanted to make sure we got good messaging out there for exactly what the timeline was, which is basically an undisclosed amount of time post the time window that we actually have the storyline take place in the game. So if you think about movies where you see things like in a distant future, in a galaxy far, far away, it's pretty non-specific. And we're kind of doing the same thing where it's a timeline close to right after when the H1Z1 virus hit. And that way you can spend really more time on the recent developments as an archetype, you know, as a player character, and less into the elements surrounding it and how much farther is it taking place. It kind of lets us focus on the virus and not necessarily about the details of the world around it.
And how
So
much
you
does
guys-
that infect your art?
A lot.
Yeah, that's my question.
A lot, actually. That's actually a fantastic question. Early on in development, you're doing a lot of R&D for the way the characters look, and even this character right here, I'll show you something really relative to what you just asked me. So you'll see a guy like this, and let me turn his arm on for a second, right? So let's turn on his arm and hand. So early in development, how does this impact characters? Well, until you kind of know the timeline that you're doing the characters to and how long the virus has been alive, you really don't know how much damage and how much influence to have the virus on each one of the zombies. Like, you know, when you watch Walking Dead, some of the zombies are really torn up and really infected. Other ones have just turned. Well, until you nail down the timeline, you really don't know how far to take the most turned zombie. And you don't know how shallow to take the infection tree. So now that we know those kind of things, where we kind of have this window relative, you know, close to when it actually hit or a time soon after, it kind of lets you go in and go, okay, well, me as a character artist, I'm going to make this a very aggressive virus. So Bob is a perfect example of that, where his face is just getting torn apart. It's eating away at his mouth where the point of infection started when he bit somebody. But then you can see he has taken some damage before that. Maybe somebody shot him with a shotgun soon after he turned, which is why he's got this huge cavity. And then I'll show you guys the arm on this guy. Let's take a look at this. And stuff like the arms and hands kind of takes you underneath the hood of what happened to him, right? So maybe he got bit right here,
Kind of looks like it, yeah.
you know, on his hand. But then you start getting really close in areas like this. You can see this could have been a dog bite. You know, this could have been, but if you look even closer, you see how he's almost got this old burnt skin. And what I'm indicating, you know, on the character side is there's an aging behavior to the virus. It's eating him up. It's almost accelerating things to a point where he goes undead. Then during his resurrection as a zombie or his undead state, some of the fleshliness doesn't return, but it changes the pigmentation. And he starts to basically have the virus start eating him in places that you can't see yet, that are underneath his shirt and stuff like that. So the early questions about timeline and stuff, that's the reason I think that's such a great question that you normally don't get, is because it really shapes the way you develop the way all the characters look, even down to a backpack. It has a huge influence over.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask about, because I've been watching Clegg yesterday do his the live cast, and a lot of the housing, inside the houses, around the houses, they all sort of have a much older look to them. Like, it looks at least like it's been 10 years. You got grass growing in the middle of the living room. That's something that doesn't happen overnight, you know. So it's it seems like the art direction is like changing somewhat, or maybe it doesn't line up with the lore all the way. I don't know.
Well, a lot of
10
stuff.
years, I mean. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Has it been 10 years or 10 weeks? I thought it was only supposed to be a couple weeks.
It's just pretty much been non-specific in like the latest stuff we put out with our clip notes, and even the stuff we talk about where some of the growth is inside. We look at a lot of stuff like some of the stuff deep in the ghettos of Western Brazil, and some of the places in Western Berlin and places specific to like decayed Detroit. There are a lot of those kind of books laying around, and you can see timelines of places because sometimes people forget areas are abandoned before they're ever completely forgotten. There are places in Detroit, you know, where they'll burn down houses just because they'll have like drug houses go up. So the neighborhoods take it in their own power and they just burn them down.
Yeah.
But the fire department's so backed up with those situations, it takes them a while to get to them. Then other houses are like post New Orleans. There was a huge, I think it was Hurricane Andrew. And then squatters came in and took over a lot of those places. So the rate of decay based on like regional, it changes significantly. And a lot of people think abandoned, but abandoned kind of means a lot of things.
Well, a total breakdown of society would also lead to a huge acceleration in decay.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting, Joe. Actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about has the timeline at all affected like clothing and kind of if because if a zombie's been wandering around for years, for instance, potentially, I mean, their clothing would be rotted. Potentially, It's kind of weird in zombie movies. You ever see like a naked zombie because you think eventually the clothes will just fall off their body at some point. But
I'm in for that, by the way. Naked zombies. I'm all about it.
Pantsless zombies.
There you go.
Those would be faster to make. So, I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. You should really pitch that idea, Matt. You'd be like, listen, guys, I think in order to hold the lore and story, I'm going to need to make these zombies without clothes on. It's the context.
No, we got to take this to a whole new level. How about invisible zombies? Because then I could take the whole week off.
There you
that
go.
Would
exactly.
be awesome.
Yeah.
Their new special ability.
To answer your question, no, it does. It does. What you really want to do with the zombies is you should be able to like Walking Dead. You can look at Walking Dead and you can almost see the age of a zombie. I think it was season 2 or 3 where they pulled the one zombie out of the well, and the only thing that really aged that zombie was that he had a lot of water retention and he had gotten bloated and expanded. Yeah. So when they pulled him out, it wasn't that he was older, but the elements made him older. And that's what we're doing on the zombies now, which is it's less relevant to a specific time as more as it is what was their profession beforehand. Were they a first responder that got the infection by being bitten through armor? It's a storyline. So like even with Bob, the idea with Bob that's different than Fred is Fred, I kind of gave him this like jean shirt. But honestly, that jean shirt could be a Western jean shirt. It could be a Metropolis type of jean shirt. It could be a fashion statement, DKNY or Kenneth Cole. It could be a lot of different things, but it kind of says that this is his income bracket. This is who he is. Mm-hmm. The same thing with Bob. That's why he's kind of got this flannel is, if you think about games like The Last of Us, if you look at Rick in Walking Dead, there's a consistent safari shirt that a lot of the quote unquote protagonists wear in the zombie films. Even if you look at like the Resident Evil franchises, so you put those kind of elements on it because they're familiar to the user. So it's more like you're trying to tell a lot of different storylines with one aesthetic, as opposed to it being just this or just that. Because then you get more travel out of the wearables.
So you add, it's apparel, clothing, all that stuff to add to the story. So like perhaps a zombie could have like a wedding ring on or something like that. You could know that this person, before everything went down was married, and that kind of adds to, you don't really think, I think subconsciously when you play games like zombie games, you go around and you're unloading bullets and all that stuff. You don't take the time to think about it. But I think that if you saw somebody coming at you in a preacher's suit, you'd be like, oh, this guy's a religious guy. You think about it for like a split second, but you don't, it's not like a conscious thought, like, oh, you don't really go back and like, you take a moment to ponder like, oh, that last zombie, who was he? What was he all about? But, but it is an important part of it. It's something that I didn't really consider before we started discussing it here. So it's very interesting.
It's one of those things where like, what a lot of character artists really have to do is you have to kind of treat the characters as their own little island, and from their head to their toes, you have to kind of tell the story about how you got here. Is there anything edible on that island? Am I able to survive here? Is there stormy weather there? You're really selling a lot of conditions on this one little planet. A planet is a better way to describe it. So, as a user, you should just look at him and go, he feels like someone to me. That's about as far as you should go subconsciously. Is, oh, he feels like someone to me. And then after you play the game for like 10 or 12 hours, you should go, oh, whoa, I never noticed that rip in his shoulder. Oh, now that I noticed the rip in his shoulder, look at the backpack. Oh, whoa, I'm seeing this web. That kind of introduces a storyline to you. Then over, maybe 6 hours, you go, whoa, there's like dry blood on his boots. Mm-hmm. You start seeing these little elements, and that kind of keeps stuff fresh, where the more of those little details you notice after you've been putting hours into the game, you really feel like you're getting more involved and is more immersive for the game you're playing. It makes a big difference.
Was it always something? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, are you all also working on the models for the players?
Yeah. Doing the players and the zombies.
Any idea or like sneak peek you could tell us about the females when we're going to get some female players?
The females are actually already in production, and what you do is you basically the reason you guys will see males first is you do the males, and then you kind of go through all the different player races. So one thing I like to always say is anybody you see at Starbucks, those are pretty much the first archetypes that you do when you do characters. So you take the males and then you step through all 4 races you'll have. So you'll have the white dude, the black dude, the Asian dude, and the Latino dude. Then you take those clothes and those wearable systems, and then you apply them to the next gender, which is a female. And people go, well, why do you do the males before the female? It's actually less about gender, and it's more about technology. The females often will not wear all the same clothing that the males do, or it looks cheesy and crappy. Mm-hmm. So by being able to take some of the male clothing and making it, more bisexual clothing, you can share. Then you can build up original female clothes and wearables from what you can't repurpose from the male. So it saves you time, and you get to get both genders in the game faster.
Skylar, do you ever play male characters or female characters when you play?
I actually do prefer to play female characters, but if the male models are really awesome, like in an MMO, if I've got really awesome male models, then male models, then I'll play.
Yes, I love female models as well, Skylar.
Especially if we're seeing a lot of other people, I like the differentiation between male and female, because really, in what sort of zombie world is just a bunch of dudes running around.
Right.
You guys are gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called
or
Rust,
the best time.
and it's stupid.
The ding dongs.
Naked
everywhere.
dudes.
Yeah, Rust. I mean, it's seriously. We've had long discussions about how Rust absolutely ruins immersion. Like the fact that every single person running around is a male and looks exactly the self and has exactly the same and has the same size head. It's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So that's great to know you guys are thinking about that.
Yeah, one of the things we're actually doing is even the male characters. Like if you look at the first character, his name is Ivan, and the reason they all have names is because one of the things we want to do on H1Z1 is some of my favorite characters to look at in games are like Grand Theft Auto 5, Uncharted 1 through 3, Killzone. And I'm naming those games specifically because when you look at the characters, they look like someone you know. They don't look like male models or female models. They look like someone you would actually see going to Home Depot. Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel like you can relate to those characters. Like this could be your neighbor now in an apocalypse trying to survive for his life. So one of the things we're trying to do on H1Z1 is we really want everyone, including the zombies, to look like someone you could have known, like the guy next door or like, the woman next door. So that when you see them, there's some sense of storyline to everything has gone south. And that's what The Walking Dead does so great. I mean, I love that show.
Well, yeah, I was just about to ask you if you said you were an artist or a comic book artist, correct? Mm-hmm. Did I mishear you on that? Okay. Yeah. How much of the influence of these actually come from the comic book Walking Dead? Because I love the Walking Dead comic book. Now, the art, I've never really gotten into the art in that comic book. I have a hard time distinguishing characters like Andrea before she got her scar and stuff like that. How much are you actually grabbing from either the TV show or, because Walking Dead's so popular, how much are you actually grabbing from that as influences? Because you've mentioned it a few times now. Yeah. So, what I'll typically do, and the answer is from all of these shows, a lot. There's so much you can learn looking at how other people have already solved these problems. I'll give you an example. Even outside of Walking Dead, you can find great zombie clothing and things that have nothing to do with zombies, like Book of Eli. Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at things like Book of Eli and you go, my goodness, I would want that outfit in this game, even in the distant future. Then you could look at stuff like, what's another good example? Terminator. The last Terminator was Terminator 4.
I didn't see that one.
If you take it wasn't that good. If you take a look at the Terminator 4 and you look at Christian Bale's character, he's got bullets on his chest. What character artists do a lot is while you guys are kind of sitting back enjoying the movie, we're looking at what the casting and wardrobe crew did on every single thing on a screen. You're almost not even paying attention to the movie as much as studying everything. Like, you're just obsessing with the characters, their boots. Is that a World War II influence on the buckle? You're somewhere completely different. And you kind of walk out the movie theater just taking mental notes.
You're
Like,
right. He didn't enjoy it like the rest of us.
oh, yeah.
Well, no, he enjoyed it in his own
way.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, here, let me ask you a question. Are you a big Firefly fan?
I do the same
Firefly
thing
fan?
every time I say it. Ellohime, I say Firefly
Big,
fan.
Huge Firefly fan and a huge Joss Whedon fan.
Because I see Reavers in this arc too.
Yeah, Dad,
I do, and I-
the teeth, yeah.
Yeah, the teeth and the cutting on the face and stuff like that. It looks very Reavers. So okay, so follow up question to what I said. I asked previous where you draw influences from. So what kind of things have you added to this that are maybe just your own? What or maybe something you've improved upon, or something that you've added to, or is original in some way?
I'm real careful to never say I improved on anything. I honestly think that all the artwork that guys like me and all of us, do, you're basically, we're all aping. We're all taking from something that we've ever seen. So the fact that you can't do that thing exactly like you want to do it, that's what makes it original. Like, you're always failing. Like, you're trying to do something and you're never getting it just right. But through that failure, it becomes original. And as funny as that sounds, I think a lot of professional artists think that way. Like, I always say you enjoy it for about 23 seconds when it's done. Because even before it's finished, you're just ripping it apart. And let's have fun with this. So one of the issues that I have is, if I take this shirt that I'm doing right now, this is what the high poly looks like, right? But then we'll take it down, and we'll take it all the way down to the low geometry and turn off all the pretty paint, right? And let me make this a color where people can see it. So this is what the underlying geometry will look like, right? And this is what the game model looks like. See how low that is?
Yeah.
So when you're actually going through this stuff, and I'll crank this back up, when you're actually doing this stuff, you're thinking in different layers, in different programs, before you guys ever see it in a game. So what's cool about this, to make my point, is you're failing on so many levels, and you're learning so much every model you do. The fun part is learning. It's never what you want. It's just always about, what can I get the next time? What can I get the next time? How can I do it better the next time? But the influences that you borrow from, they're all of it. They're Walking Dead, Resident Evil. Yes, I know they're not the best movies, but in all those movies, there's something to learn. Like, the zombies change from 1 to 4 or 5. It's just, you're always seeing something like, speaking of which, there's a show on Sci-Fi Channel, I can't remember the name of it, that the veins in the infection, they're like black to dark red. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I came home and immediately started putting, dark red veins as a part of the skin infection, bleeding. It's almost like the dark veins go into the skin, but then they disappear into the age of the skin and it just starts peeling it back. So it's like, that's probably like the equivalent of 3 or 4 shows that I've seen. So I'm always careful to go, hey, you're always taking from something. It's just a matter of, like,
was it Picasso that said, good artists copy, great artists steal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean you're stealing, like, directly 100% copy for copy, but if you can take the influences from many different artists and sort of pull it together into your own sort of look, then that's where you're going to get a lot of.
Why would you start from the bottom if you have so many other people who have been through the process that you can learn from so quickly?
That's exactly right. And you make a fantastic point, because like, even when we go to the art institutes and we're mentoring some of the artists, you always talk about one guy that I met years ago. You guys, I'm not sure if you guys know, like, Jim Lee in comics, but I used to work with Jim Lee over at Wildstorm and Image Comics, and a saying that we had in the studio was, you're only as good as your reference. If you're going to do folds, go look at Leyendecker, because he figured it out a million years ago. If you want to look at anatomy, go look at the Statue of David. If you want to figure out how to do great American culture, look at Rockwell. Like, there's so many amazing artists that keep you humble. You go back and you look at how they're problem solving, and the awesome thing about doing characters is they're the hardest thing you're going to ever do in your life. So every time you go outside and look at somebody in a different lighting condition, because everything's material based now, you're immediately ripping something you just finished. Like, oh, I nailed that skin. Then you go outside, you look at transmittance and translucency while someone's sitting in Starbucks, you go, God, I suck. Like, that's exactly what happens. It's just, it's brutal, but it's fun. I
just gotta say real quick, I'm just gonna say I fucking love you, Matt. Just talking to me like in this little bit of time, like I can tell how passionate you are about what you do. You love what you do. It's apparent.
It's an obsession. It's an obsession. Yeah. No, it's just that's the one thing I love about the characters. Like, no matter what's kind of going on in your life, your career, or anything like that, you kind of come home and you sit in a studio space like this, and you always get back to this merciless challenge. Like, it's never good enough, and I know that's really narcissistic, but it's like a puzzle you're never gonna get right, and you go to bed going, "Yay!" And then you're sitting there laying awake at night. Like, you went to bed at 1 and you're still awake at 3, and you're on YouTube watching anatomy videos, like speed videos of, God, I know that felt right when I did it. Oh, wait, but his fist wasn't clenched. So when when his fist is clenched, there's something completely happens in the tricep. Well, what does that look like? So you're on YouTube at 3 a.m. going, what does that look like? Oh man, that guy nailed it. Where's his website? Oh, he's got an anatomy course. I got to take that guy's course tomorrow. Like, yes.
Matt, I can totally empathize with you because I'm not an artist at your level by any means, but I'm a graphic designer, and I, from time to time, do a lot of graphic type stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Like, even tonight, I threw this interface together real quick because we were going to have your art in the center. And I had to rush to get it done, and the whole time I'm like, no, I got to move that over about another inch. It's like, fuck, it's not ready. It's totally not ready. I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to put it up. So, yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
And then you sit here this entire broadcast and you obsess with...
Yes, Survivor chat is over about 2 pixels too far to the left, and there's a bigger space, like by about 1 pixel between Ko and Ellohime, and I'm going, you know,
I've been staring at those pixels the whole time, Domo.
I know. I've really noticed the lack of detail here.
The lack of caring and spirit.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna start crying. Yeah, no.
I'm a little too close to the podcast zero title. Can you move me?
No.
It's crowding me. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I've got my window in pop-out mode.
Yeah, it's not like turning in. You know, I don't feel like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Awesome.
Well, why don't you draw for a few minutes, Matt, and let's talk about some of the news that's come out for about H1Z1 for everybody else. And Matt, if you want, you can hop in and talk about it too. What did you guys think of? And maybe some of you haven't heard it yet, but of the Survivor Radio. How many of you guys heard it? Did you listen to it?
I thought it was beautiful.
All right, so Ko and Ellohime, you've been really busy, and I understand why you probably... It's 2 hours long.
I completely missed the last podcast. I hate saying it.
No, it's okay. So basically what they did is, and I'll just refresh it because some people in the audience might not know as well, is they made it sort of like a War of the Worlds kind of... it's like a Survivor radio show. I mean, that's what it's called too. But what they did was you got this one guy, Double D. What was his nickname? Was that
Double D.
Double D.
Double D.
Double D basically survived and took some tape recorders and was recording different people and interviewing them of like what happened, how did they get out, how did they survive, what have they been doing, and it went through this whole kind of storyline with this lore. And I personally thought it was absolutely great. It really got me into the whole thing. I was like, there was people in the chat losing their shit because they weren't showing gameplay. But if they sat back and just listened to what was going on, they were giving away a lot of inside information and a little bit of little sneak peeks and stuff like that with the show.
I'm really interested to see it.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, if somebody in my chat, one of my mods, if you could, you guys have been awesome tonight. If one of you mods can link a video or find a link to the video for that, please make that available to everybody here.
Yeah,
It should be just the latest broadcast.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be the latest one on their Twitch channel. So, I'll just add, whilst the idea is not original, because it's slightly different, but it's almost the same as World War Z, the book by Max Brooks, where basically he was a investigative journalist going around interviewing people who had survived the apocalypse. So this is sort of the same, but H1Z1 have taken their own angle on it, which is introducing their own lore into it, basically creating stories for the characters, creating scenarios throughout the country and how it affected different parts and different people's stories. But from my standpoint, it was absolutely brilliant. Like, I love World War Z, the book, and because this is very similar to it, I was enthralled. I was sitting there just listening, and I could imagine someone sitting in a bunker, with like candles flickering in the background. They've got their MRE, and they're sitting there, and they've got their crackly little, battery radio, and they're sitting there listening to this guy, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is good. Someone's still alive."
Someone's still alive out there, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Loved it.
Skylar, what'd you think?
That's why I'm really excited for H1Z1 because it doesn't feel like they're just making a game that is just about killing people. I feel like it's deeper than that, and that's pretty exciting. And I think, or at least I hope, they put a few Easter eggs in there, like the distraction device that they were using that sounded like a baby crying that they threw. I hope that actually exists. I think that that's going to be a surprise when it does or something.
So Ko and Ello and even the people in the audience might not have seen it. Basically, they were talking about that this one group figured out that if they could take a baby doll and like have it cry, tie like a little radio to it or something, make it scream, they could throw it in the middle of a rural area, and every zombie for like 100 yards would charge that thing, and it would basically get them out of the houses and sort of make it to where it was safe to move up the road, and they could just, it was like a baby grenade, because zombies really want to eat babies more than anything else. So
no, it was the
I think
guy.
I've never heard
I like
baby grenade said so casually.
That's good. It was good.
It's a baby grenade.
Did you say baby grenade?
yeah.
Yes,
I've been playing a lot of Wolfenstein, okay? So we can't get too crazy. My mind's the possibilities.
It was the school's nursing dolls that they use for maternity classes, and
Right.
they've got the little radio baby cry inside with it going off. But one of the people stumbled across one in the school while they were trying to loot it, and it started crying, and he freaked out, threw it out the window, and there's something about the cry that the zombies just and they just went for it.
Yeah.
Clearly,
And
they
then
prefer
they-
eating babies.
That's right, and
Absolutely.
so they discovered that it wasn't the baby; it was literally the noise it made. So they made a device that just made the noise, but was a little bit more durable than like a rag baby doll. And it's baby grenade pretty much.
I think it's going to exist.
I call the name. You guys came up with the rabbit heads on sticks a couple weeks ago. I get baby grenade. All right.
Matt, maybe you haven't heard about that. Would you like me to pitch you my idea?
Yeah, because Matt could do it. I think he could develop.
I'm just sitting
Yeah.
here thinking about how I would model and put a baby grenade in the game. Like, how would you even hold that to throw it?
You could toss
Just
it by a
head.
leg or an
Just
arm.
the head.
Kind of fling it like a tomahawk.
That is so wrong, but so right at the same time.
Hey man, I can't change physics. It's what it is.
He's
Baby
a
dolls are
professional
like-
baby slinger.
I'm gonna put that on my resume.
This is- does online
streamer and
lens
professional
says
baby
that,
slinger.
Event groups and blah blah blah, and can throw a baby grenade 45 yards.
You're in. I like your style.
I like you. It's funny because I find that no matter what anyone does, usually with video games, people are striving to connect with characters. Okay. So some games are more deliberate about it, like let's say the Walking Dead video game, the adventure game, if you guys have played that. You get a connection with these characters. You're making choices for them, or at least one of them, and you're getting to know these characters, and their characters are linear. Those characters have a certain response to what happens, and will always be the response. But you get to know these characters in a very deliberate way. It's designed that way. Then you've got an MMO where you become the character, you make your character, you decide what the story is with that person and that character that model that you've created. So then you've got a thing like DayZ, and DayZ always seems so disconnected to me. Like there's almost no like again, you're trying to create. I think one of the draws of DayZ is because they don't give you anything. You simply try to become something. They don't have role types there, but somebody's always, they constantly talk about how, can we have a medic role? Can we have this role? Can we have that role? Well, I'm going to be a bandit, So it's interesting the approach that SOE has taken. From what I hear in this, it's almost trying to put a story or a face value, a character, a connection with the environment and with the world before it's even done. And it seems like in kind of a I would say even like a risky way, but it seems like it paid off. I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Are you talking about
like,
like players or
it's pretty much-
NPCs, Ello?
I'm talking about.
I'm sorry,
I'm
Matt.
about the.
Oh no, so you're good.
I haven't watched the video yet, but it sounds like with the NPCs and with the just the overall feel and vibe of it, to do a 2-hour long story of something and do like interviews and things like that, you're not necessarily drawing someone into. Maybe they have separate characters that might show up. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that whether or not you're worried about the characters or anything, you're starting to learn more about the environment in which these people are living that you are going to live in.
Right, and I think that's the key thing too. Is the big thing too is I think what we really wanted to accomplish with that, like you were saying, was give a sense of the lore and the world around it, but at the same time, when you're actually in the game itself, you're still going to dictate that path. I mean, it's basically giving a sense of the world that's much bigger than you can ever see. But you're gonna have your own journey. You're gonna have your own storyline, and honestly, the players are always going to dictate the storyline and create that storyline with each other. You're going to help each other, survive in the post-apocalyptic world. You're going to be side by side with other players. There's a sense of economy to the world. We've talked about that. There's a sense of, building up fortification and structures. You're going to have your, team speak and your able chat. So you as the players are still going to drive what these archetypes do. But it just kind of lends itself to how massive the belief system is in the H1Z1 lore.
It's interesting.
Will any of that lore be apparent in game, or are we getting all of it out of game, or do you know?
I know, but I can't tell you guys. But I will tell you this: it's cool. It's really cool. And what I love the most is what I'm having so much fun with is I actually like the way Smed is kind of like guerrilla style and virally marketing this and just kind of putting out teasers. For us as devs, we're actually enjoying the stuff just as much as you. And there's certain things that we see moments before they went live because they're keeping it such a good secret. Like even when we put out the Easter egg site, we knew about that moments before you guys saw it. Right. So everybody on the dev team got really excited. Then you go and it's like, hey, check this out. It's like, oh my goodness. And you hear the music and you see everything come together. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Have you had any secret art, things that you're keeping from people? Do you have your own secrets, Mr. Matt?
I do. And there's
Awesome.
there's actually stuff that I think that we're going to do even on the character side that I hope will shock people when they see it in the game. That really gives just a sense of the world and, what used to be there and how it is now. And one of my favorite things about The Walking Dead is it's not just about how people got there. It's the sense of loss. Like, oh my goodness, that guy had a son at some point. So ultimately you should feel that same kind of emotion in H1Z1. It should be, how did that guy get the virus? How fast does the virus work? If you can get it, can you get the virus in the game? Like there's all these elements that I think we can do. That's for us as devs, it's exciting. It's real exciting. I mean, we have an engine, we know what it does. So really it's about, well, how can you take an engine that's got this scalability to it and add this survival, mechanism to it? We already do e-commerce, we're SOE, and do this in a survival type of environment with building. We did building in, Free Roam, Star Wars. We know how to do building. These are the things that we're kind of good at for the last 15 years. So for us to be able to do it in a game like this, that's, got this really grown-up theme to it, that's got these kind of like conditions to it that grown-ups have to make with grown-up emotions and grown-up responses, man, you love it. Because we're as devs there, a lot of us have been there for a while, and we're just sitting there doing stuff, like even some of the behaviors of zombies where they get caught in barbed wire. You've got one guy doing AI, then you have another guy who's actually propping out the world. They're in two different parts of the building. Then one day you look up and somebody's posted, look at this. The zombie AI led him to this collidable object, and he got stuck. And it killed him because the properties dictated that the damage killed the zombie. Like, wow, you're building this world where all these elements come together. Like, we'll see stuff like the other day, the guy who does some of the AI work on a zombie while they continue to tune him. And you see wolves just running around being chased by hordes of zombies. Then you'll see some of those zombies see a deer and just break from the pack. And it's awesome because you're just creating all these conditions. And you're watching this stuff happen, and then insert players, then insert the ability to build and fortify areas. Because one thing I say every day is, I want to be the governor. I want to be the governor.
You want to be the governor, get an eye patch and everything?
Absolutely.
Wait, do you want to be the
Yes.
comic book governor, or do you want to be the show governor? 'Cause those are two different people.
They're very different. I want to be
answers.
somewhere. I want to be somewhere in between. The comic book governor is probably the direction I would want to go. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how many people have read Rob Kirkman's read the graphic novels, but I would just get the ebook for them or the Comixology app. But they're fantastic.
Something I wanted to mention was that we are all, as on the player side, at least I can speak for myself, and you guys might be hopping in here too, but we're looking for a real zombie game that works. And so earlier you were talking about like Daisy. Daisy, while it has the suspense of maybe I'm going to get shot walking around this corner every few seconds, which is great, it doesn't feel like a zombie game. The zombies are almost kind of like, okay, if I can just run around this building 3 times, I'll lose them. Or I can
Zombies are an annoyance, not a threat.
Exactly. And then, you got Rust, where you could build things, but then they took the zombies away. And then, you've got all these different games that every little piece is sort of almost coming together, but nothing exactly has nailed it. And I think that's why so many of us are excited, because we see that Sony has the building ability from Landmark, and they've got, the engine from PlanetSide 2, and they've got all these different elements that are going to come together and make this amazing game.
Yeah, you go back even to things like, the NPCs in Star Wars Galaxy. You can go even farther back to that, some of the NPCs in EverQuest, Clone Wars, DC Universe Online. You go to all these SOE games, and what was exciting for us is as many elements that we have done before, we were excited about the challenge, to be honest with you, with games that we actually do like. We like games, and there are a lot of people on the team that play War Z, that play Daisy, and that even play games like Rust, even, while we were working on us, and they still enjoy playing them. So with us, it's always less about what they're not doing, and it's really more about, well, what can we do with this storyline that's exciting and fun? And, watching shows like The Walking Dead, which is very pop culture, what are they doing that's exciting that we could pull into the game? What did they do in this movie or this show? We were watching War Z, and you look at Brad Pitt's character and the journey he goes on. He never picks up a gun in the whole movie, but he's surviving more than anybody else in the film. So there's so much exciting stuff that you can bring to this with the things that I think that we do well and we have experience doing. But there's so much new stuff you can do with this. That to me makes it really, really exciting to work on a game.
DJ Fingus, yes, this will be on my YouTube channel. It also goes up on SoundCloud as a podcast, and all the people on the show will be able to put this out on their own YouTube channels or whatever. So yes.
Yeah, well, I'll probably be making a highlight of the whole broadcast.
Cool, yeah. Perfect. All right. So now we're at the point for Q&A time. Are we ready to start some Q&A time?
Let's do it.
All right. So these are.
Is that a question?
Yes, it's a Q&A.
Should I answer?
So you may now answer it.
Have we started?
We started.
Yeah.
All right. So no, you don't have to answer any or all these. If you just don't want to answer it, you can just say skip, and we'll move on, because some stuff I know is probably still sort of sensitive. All right. DJ Fingus asks, square planes for the hair, right, Broome?
On this, it's going to be, there's actually a couple of characters that I'm doing. The answer to his question is yes. In this character that I'm doing right now, I'm actually using long tubes that I've pinched the ends to. Here, let me actually show him. Because I know why he's... So let me show you what I'm doing with the hair on this guy. Let's get this centered on the screen. All right. So what I'm doing on the hair that is a little different is because of the draw distance that I'm going to have the zombies in the game, this being an NPC, you're not looking at him over the back shoulder like you do the third placing character. You're looking at him from about 5 to 10 meters about 90% of the time. So because of that, I'm using long cylindrical tubes, and I'm pinching the end of them to save polys. Then all the detail that you see drawn on top is actually happening in the normals and in the diffuse map. So that'll let you get the shape of the hair up close. So if I turn this on, I'm not sure how this red's going to come through on this guy. So let me change the color again for you guys. So if I show you guys what this looks like without the rendered, what we call diffuse layer on, you can kind of see the overall shape of this guy. Center this again and zoom out. And then I'll wait for this to update. And basically what you can see is the overall shape of the hair is there, so it can catch light and shadow at a distance. Then you see when you get up close, you can see some of the up close details. Then you take his head and put it in there, and the details, the darkness of the hair, frame his eyes and frame his face. So you kind of get it all in a snapshot to where when you zoom out back here, the hair basically frames the head in a way where you know that this isn't Fred. You know that this is a different zombie. And then the V nature of the decay around his mouth and his cheeks tells you that if the hair frames his eyes, then the way his face is cut frames his mouth. And then you look at the teeth, and then you know you have a different character. So low poly geo, you pinch the edge with the cylindrical stuff, and then you draw. You fake the detail that the eye can pick up, painting it. Because you can get more detail in the texture than you can in
the actual modeling, yeah.
Right,
Awesome.
Right.
AFK Twitch asks, will they take damage in real time? I guess
Yes.
he's asking, will parts of the body fly off like giblets?
What we're working on right now is for early access, we won't have damage to the models. The degree of damage that we'll have post early access, we're actually working on a technology to that now. When it comes to things like dismemberment, it's really about how Ragdoll takes damage and how these the damage that is actually inflicted is represented on the character, whether it's flying off of him or not, but more so, does take damage mean that you shoot him in the hip, he takes damage? Okay, great, because we already have particle blood in the game. That sells the illusion of impact. The fact that he has to play a take damage animation slows him down. So that's what we're really focusing on, which is making sure that when you're in melee or you're shooting somebody with the gun or you're using like an axe, there should be a time decision to the player about how much impact has been taken to each zombie, because we have multiple zombies coming at you at the same time. So we're trying to make sure we tune it in a way where your decision tree is based on hit zombie number 1 with this weapon, he takes this damage, plays this animation, and that slows him down. So I can melee with this guy and then finish off this guy before catching this guy on fire so he can run it to the other guys. And, there's a decision tree there. So, yeah, you'll be able to deliver damage to the zombies, but when we tune it, we'll have a better idea of exactly how they take damage and what happens after that beyond the animation.
So if a zombie is actually charging you, and like in your example there, you were talking about getting shot in the hip, like there may be an animation where they actually move back at the point of impact and actually slow down at that point?
We are currently working on things like knockback animation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There was, and during the 12-hour live stream that you guys did, they did show the fighting, and I was impressed by that. Just the way that the blood was coming off of his fist as he's pounding on that zombie's face, I was like, yes!
Yeah.
It looked very visceral, and I was pretty impressed by that, and it's still early alpha, so I'm really looking forward to it as we get going.
There's a lot of gameplay stuff like we're talking about specifically that we're working on right now that we'll have in our internal build that you guys just haven't seen yet, of course, where there's a lot of things that we're doing with tuning knockback, tuning weapons, tuning melee, adding in the kind of punches that you can do. Even things like, tuning the angle specifically that a character can chop down a tree so that you can get a better sense of what direction to move when it falls over so it doesn't kill you. So there's all this fine tuning that we're doing even before early access to make sure that when we do put out early access, that it's just tight, that it feels right. That's what a lot of work is just making things feel really good.
Question here. With all the detailed models we've seen already, any info on the possible minimum recommended PC specs to run it? This is from Death Thirst.
That I do not know, Dev, but the one thing is I know that right now, without giving a specific number for the frame rate, even in our development stage right now, the frame rate on the server and on the client is the best that I've ever seen out of the Forge Light engine on this game.
Wow.
I think the biggest thing that people are going to notice in early access, Tom Shank, you guys have probably seen him on some previous feeds that we've done before, or like the very first gameplay feed. Him and the other engineers on the project have done an outstanding job with keeping performance high on the game. I'll play at work like today for an internal playtest. I had Maya 3D program open, ZBrush with this current model that you're seeing right now, which is about 20 million polys, and Photoshop open, and I played the game with all those windows open, and I was still over 60 frames per second.
Oh.
Wow.
Damn.
That's pretty impressive.
That's good.
So that answers the question there for you, Mr. Deaththirst. From DJ Fingus, is the shirt removable in game because you did some texturing over the body, which is covered by the shirt?
What you'll basically see is the answer to his question is yes. You're seeing like one version of this shirt, but for this current character, there will be 3 versions of this shirt, 3 versions of this damage state, so that we can make Bob have 5 different shirts. And what you'll also see is we'll have short sleeve shirts, and some of those short sleeve shirts will have damage in different regions than even the long sleeve shirts. So if you put all these variables together, you quickly get to a lot of different looking zombies with different looking damage with different looking shirts. And when you put them all together, the silhouettes, the color palette all change. So you see a lot of variation.
I got a quick follow-up to that. So I'm noticing, like, if I look at this model that you're displaying in the stream right now, it's almost like you could zero in, just like you were saying earlier, you could zero in on independent portions of this body and tell a story. Like you said earlier, a shotgun blast to the torso and a dog bite on the arm. Is this the kind of thing where every model will have that same type of body agitation, or are we going to see like random elements on random bodies? Like how are you guys going to address that kind of thing?
Well, that's a good question, because what you'll do is on some of these zombies, like if you watch The Walking Dead, you'll see some hyper detailed zombies, right? And they'll have unbelievable makeup. Face is torn off, bottom chin is missing, teeth are coming out of the skin if they have bottom teeth at all. They're just crazy detailed. Then you'll see some, they're almost like fill-in actors, right? They don't have the same level of detail. There are 2 reasons for that. If you watch the behind the scenes on AMC, they talk about we only have so much money to make up so many extras. And video game development's really the same. You only have so much time to get everything done. So you almost need to take a snapshot of all the characters you're going to make and go, okay, there's my AAA Tom Cruise guy. I'm putting a lot of time in him, a lot of budget. Now those other 3 guys really just frame visually the guy that's in the front, the superstar. And you follow those rules on every piece of the character. But when you get into the wearables like this shirt, I've got to be able to take this shirt and put this shirt on Fred. So you'll see a version of this same shirt on Fred, right? And so when this shirt is on Fred, it becomes Joe. And because Joe has a different head, even though he's wearing the same shirt. Joe's facial features, because the keys to the soul are through the eyes. When you see a different face, that's really what you see first. And when you put that together in milliseconds, you see a face for a few milliseconds, you go into your decision tree of how to fight and play the game, then you're on to the next zombie. So you got to have to kind of stack the detail in a way where when you go through your decision tree, you're randomizing what's unique about each character you're fighting. So you basically mix these elements together. But on some of these zombies, they'll be unique. They won't share. There'll be less clothing on them. They'll have no shirt and just pants that are ripped and torn and tattered. So
That's right, baby.
You'll have some like Left 4 Dead is another perfect example. You'll have some that are just shredded and just horrifying.
Excellent answer. Thank you. That answered my question perfectly.
It's a good question.
I think what we're trying to get at is in DayZ specifically. I know I played a lot, and Cole, you played a lot too. I don't think I've seen any of the other. Stockus obviously.
Ello has had some amazing DayZ experiences lately. Right. Just saying.
But they have it's all the same. There's like 2 zombies, maybe 3. Just what it feels like. It's the same exact ones over and over.
Exactly. And
we don't want to see that kind of thing. So we were wondering, back when we were first talking about H1Z1, I said, wouldn't it be great if they had some kind of procedural generation for the bodies so that we never saw the same 2 zombies ever,
You're gonna there is one of the really talented engineers on the project, Josh Krieghauser, is working with Jimmy and Thomas Shank, and all of us are working together right now to make sure that when we put together the character system and pipeline, when the engine makes the decision on how it randomizes these characters, that you get a really good cross sample of different looking zombies. And by doing things like creating multiple heads, multiple faces, multiple hair types, you can get some unique zombies where you need them. You can call those our Tom Cruise zombies. But you can also get a nice mixture of always seeing something different. Okay. So that, you might see a zombie with coveralls. That's one of the things I can't wait to do. You know, so you see a guy with coveralls on, no shirt, and you might see some zombies that, you know, have a scarf hanging out their back pocket. But the key thing is they'll look different. So right now, the ones that you guys are seeing where it's just Fred is really so we could get a lot of Freds in there to test frame rate, to make sure we're spawning them accurately. It's more of a dev thing, but you'll notice that you'll see a couple of zombies in early access. Mm-hmm. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot more coming.
Okay. I guess DJ Fingus is a modeler or a 3D artist, because he says, will the specular map change when rain or water is poured over the models?
He's sir. And I could tell by his hair question that he's an experienced guy. So yes is the answer. And what's even really cool is we are actually going to be introducing a new skin shader in H1Z1 that has transmittance. So not only are you going to get specular, and this hasn't been made public yet, we're actually working on it right now. I'm working on it with another engineer, Jay. I'll let you guys know. I'll let you guys know, because what I'll do is I'll tweet a picture of it and let you guys know.
Okay.
So you guys can put it out there. But it's cool because not only does the skin get wet, the sky dome changes with the weather conditions. Mm-hmm. So if you have a character that's dry and you run across the screen from day to night, not only does he go from being dry and have a very dry aesthetic to his whole body, he gets wet in the rain, gets shiny, and his skin has a transmittance and a glow to it. Mm-hmm. It looks unbelievable. It's absolutely fantastic to look at. So what we're doing right now is just making sure that we tune the skin properly so that it doesn't just get shiny. It does that now, but skin has a very specific roll-off to the behavior of it, and that's what we just want to nail. So when you look at your hand and it's wet in the rain, it still has that glow to it that you see when it's, 5 o'clock in the noon in a spring day, and it's got a reflectivity and a translucence to it. So that's like the super complicated stuff, but it's even better than just spec. It goes a little farther than that. It's really cool. You'll love it.
I tried to do something like even half as cool as that in Unity, and it was a nightmare. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know anything that you just said in the last 10 minutes.
That sounded amazing, awesome. Right? Me either. I was like, that sounds awesome,
but it sounds awesome.
But Ellohime is impressed.
Wet zombies, yes!
You used many words that had many letters. And for that,
and you
I
said it in
you.
an exciting way.
Yes,
Yay.
and you said it with an exciting voice, and I was convinced.
Passion behind the unknown terms.
What's so funny is like we're such a hodgepodge. We're just a bunch of nerds running around eating junk food and making games. So like when we're trying to talk normal, you just get that face at the family gatherings of like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I make video games. Can you explain that to me? Well, blah 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 blah. 10 minutes goes by. What? Like they're still like, I have no idea what you do for a living. You just.
I sound like me and Ello trying to explain streaming to our relatives
on a TV screen. Everybody always asks me what is streaming? I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm like, it's like radio, but on the internet
with
video
pictures.
games. Yeah, with pictures.
What's the internet again?
Yeah, it's the internet. Something man. Al Gore created.
A series of tubes.
There's a question here, and maybe you can answer this one, Matt. Maybe you can't. This one's Cyberwolf. He's a prolific question asker on all of my podcasts. He's well known for that. But he's asked about 45 questions already. I'm just going to skip to one. I think maybe you could answer. When we kill NPCs, will they drop appropriate items or loot for what they are? Well, wolves won't drop bullets or chicken cutlets.
So basically, he's saying, will NPCs drop loot like player characters? The answer to that is possibly. We haven't made a final decision on that or announced anything. That has been a part of discussions, but I don't want to point him in a direction that indicates that we've already decided that. It has been discussed ad nauseum. I would definitely say no, or not say no. I wouldn't say yes. But the idea of getting loot from characters, we continue to go to places like Reddit. That's one of the things that has come up there a lot. All of us go to Reddit every single day and read the update for the dev notes and stuff. So a lot of the stuff that you guys are driving on Reddit is a part of our meetings that we have every week. So loot drops from NPCs is one of those things that we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, just to elaborate on his question, you can't really answer whether it's yes or no, but I guess what he's more elaborating to is, say you go past a garage, like a mechanic's, and there's a dude with coveralls on. He's obviously a mechanic, but he's been bit and he's dead. If you were to kill him and then loot him, would you pick up something like maybe spark plugs for a car or maybe a wrench or something, rather than like in so many other things like, you know, you kill a pig and you get chicken cutlets, or you kill a zombie and he's got bullets on him, and he's, you know, obviously a farmer or even a businessman with a briefcase, and you're picking up ammunition off him. I guess that's like, if you were to do the loot drops with them, would you be looking at that sort of, you know, it makes sense, in depth sort of
a policeman dropping ammo, exactly.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is yes. On the environmental side, one of the things we're doing right now in the playtest, actually not right now, I want to say about 2 months ago is when we were dealing with a lot of that stuff, was as we're populating the world and doing things like putting the convenience store in there, you know, the small mart, if you will. When you go in a small mart, you would expect to find maybe bullets. Since they're the number one retailer in the world, in this fictional world, for selling guns and bullets, so common logic like that, the answer is yes. Those are the kind of things that while we're testing and playing the game, is if you say chop down a certain kind of tree, you should get a certain amount of wood from the kind of tree you're cutting. When you go past a convenience store, you should get maybe food items that are relative to that convenience store. Now they might not be exactly right. You might find some pharmaceutical needs in a convenience store, but you should find those type of things. So to answer this question, yes. Those are the kind of things that we're doing right now.
Does it ever amaze you how needy we are as gamers these days? How things have evolved to a point. No, but seriously, we used to be fine with, you know, a couple pixels on a screen running back and forth, you know, and now it's like we expect a certain like minimum.
Yeah.
We expect that anytime we're around a zombie that it immediately knows that we're there and can attack us. And, you know, like,
yeah.
But then you start throwing all these extra detail elements. When you chop down a tree, if it's this thick, you get this much wood. Now, as opposed to, it's amazing how much we expect now, or how much we want out of these games. Does it ever feel like you're limited to help us, like in your artwork, with what we want, as opposed to what you can do with the programs or anything that you're given?
You know, the answer would be no, because I think what you have is, in an information age, you have such a more educated consumer. So the idea would be, you could ask the same question in the way of like a car. We used to just be content if a car went 200 miles an hour, right? Well, now it just, 10 years from now, the car can't just go faster. It's got to drive itself. If Google doesn't have a car that goes 200 miles an hour with me in the back seat that I don't have to drive, well, I'm going to be pissed. Matter of fact, I'm not going to buy another Google car. So I think it's like the consumer gets smarter, it's supply and demand. If the consumer demands better supply, then you just kind of figure out, well, how do I cut calories? Because people like cake. So how do I make a cake without you almost don't think about it. As a professional, your job ultimately is to accept the challenge and then go back and with technology, solve the problem. So we kind of tend to focus. If you look at SOE's history and you look at the games that they've made from EverQuest to now, the thing I love the most about the company is they are always challenging themselves. You look at stuff like Star Wars Galaxy, and it's like, well, how can we make this world with planets? Oh, yeah, and then our first expansion is going to be space. Who does that? Like, it's always like these big challenges. And as developers that have been there, you come into work, and Smed's like, yeah, we're going to go to Smed and Russell Shanks are like, we're going to go to space with our next expansion. It's like, holy cow, space? Okay, now we have to write a space system. Now you have to figure out gravity, now, our lack of gravity, how big is the solar system outside the planet. And everybody has a tendency of just rallying around these really tough challenges. So when it comes to like the kind of immersion that players want, I think it's really a compliment that players have gone from, Qbert to, Metal Gear Solid. And they're so accepting of the world that they're in, they want it to be more real. And even like the question that the guy had earlier was a great question, which is, if I go by a small mart or a convenience store, is there going to be convenience store stuff in it? And I think if you're a player and you don't get that kind of payoff, it disconnects you from the immersion. So no, I think, honestly, I think the consumers keep us honest which is why I like how we're developing this with the community, with Reddit, because they're thinking about stuff as they're playing something, and they're experiencing things at such a rate that you're really getting a chance to super sample all these really educated consumers that can tell you in real time what you need to do next week. Like, it really influences what you're doing and the decisions that you're making in a week that you want to get to in months, and then ultimately make a great game when you release it. But no, I think it's healthy, actually.
That's an awesome answer. All I can think about though right now is Hubert in a cardboard box sneaking around.
Yeah,
like, that's the best idea ever.
Yeah,
that is a great answer though. It's great to get perspective on things, and that's why I think these interviews are so important, because it's there's a lot I'm realizing that I don't understand or I take for granted. So that's very cool. Thank you for answering that.
It's also really good to know you guys are thinking about immersion, because I mean DayZ sort of got it with like some types of items or in some types of buildings, but there's so much of it that just doesn't add up a lot of times, and then you throw that in with the zombie type problems we were talking about earlier, and it's just lost. It's completely lost. So the fact that this is, and Rust, I mean, is a perfect example of how immersion is just thrown to the wind. They don't even care anymore. I mean, dogs are dropping ammo, and bears are dropping hatchets. It doesn't even make sense. So it's good to know that this is going to be one of the first attempts where it actually seems like from the get-go you guys are thinking about this, and that's going to change the game in itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next, keep on moving here. How many complete models do you plan on in H1Z1? This is from Vermicious Cadet.
Well, I could tell you for player characters, for the schedule itself is, like we were talking about earlier, if you can see them in Starbucks, you can see them in the game. So you're talking about if you have 4 different races and 4 different males, and then 4 different females at 4 different races, then we can safely say that you're going to have a range of 8 characters at some point. Now, whether that's early access or later on, that's yet to be determined, but that is definitely the scope of the number of characters you'll have. And when it comes to NPCs, there's not even a number. It's really just a matter of how many you can hold with memory. And if you're kind of making smart decisions about, what we talked about earlier was the variables and using combinations of these variables to make more characters, you can make a lot of characters. But since we have things like crafting and economy, you have to make sure that you're leaving enough of a budget in there. So when you guys were talking about that immersion, you would expect to kind of find pedestrian clothes around the world just by walking around finding them in locations like an abandoned campground. But when you start talking about being able to get specific wearables like, military clothing or, the Book of Eli, like stuff that we talked about earlier, well then, okay, there's a different decision tree for that. How do you get those elements? Are we trading those elements? So the idea is to fill the world in with what SOE has always done, which is, in Sony Online, Player Studio has always been a big part of what we do. So you have to have budget in there if, we turn on the light at some point, which we will, where people can make some of this clothing. So a lot of this is taking a snapshot really of the world and selling that at a pedestrian level, like you guys are seeing right now in the videos, but then going wide with it. What are players going to want to create within, within this world of what's relevant, in a not so distant future from when the game or when the virus hit and things went post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Yeah, take off, that's right. So John Dagger's asking, what part of the world will the game be based?
Right now, it's if you guys look at the signs coming into the town, it's Oblivion. Oblivion is a fictional location that really kind of represents what you could call a culmination of the United States. So it should feel like Anywhere USA, but that's where the initial game will take place. Without getting into some of the internal discussions about how big the world will become, the space itself will grow, and its relationship, in a geographical way, will grow as well. So it'll be initially, at a non-specific size, and it will scale and get larger and larger over time. But right now, it's really about Anywhere USA, or what we call Oblivion.
All right, well, because you just mentioned size, I have to ask this question because it's gone up in the chat about 100 times.
It's gone up and you have to ask it?
Yeah.
About the size?
About the size.
About the size? Okay, go ahead.
You got to know how big it is, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how big the map is?
The whole thing we're doing with the map right now is, if you would have asked me that question 2 weeks ago, I would say it's like literally 10% smaller than it is now. So with the rate that we're actually growing the current world, right now, the world that we currently have is as large or bigger than any of the PlanetSide maps you played or any of the past SOE maps. When we actually get to launch, it'll be even bigger than that. So it's kind of funny because we get that question a lot, but one of the reasons we haven't been specific is because honestly, every 5 working days, a lot of us work 6 or 7 days, it's just bigger and bigger and bigger. It just, I wish, but but it's just, it's almost an impossible answer to give specifically, because we're actually making the game while we're talking to you guys, to the degree where I'm actually working on an in-game model that I'm going to put in the game this week right in front of your viewers. So everything about it is as transparent as it feels. So when it comes to the world, I really don't know, because when I go into work tomorrow, it's going to be that much bigger than it was today.
Now, any of you guys remember, are the PlanetSide 2 maps in comparison to DayZ map, the Chernobyl? How big would you say it is? You guys can give me, because I don't know the sizes.
I don't even know how I would do that comparison, like in meters or kilometers. So I think it's the way that it's actually laid out, even the tree count. I mean, the world is just massive. Mm-hmm. It was funny when we first put out those initial screenshots, where you have that panorama view.
Right.
There are people who thought that was fake, and it was like, no, it's just massive. The number of trees that are in the world. We actually had somebody say, I've never seen this many trees in a game in my life. And then when they saw that we were chopping trees down and they were falling and we were actually getting wood from those trees and then building forest fires, they just couldn't believe it. So it's not so much it's not so much about how big it is. It's about how large can we make the world before we actually do the official launch for the game after early access. And it's really all hands on deck, just growing. But I can guarantee you the world, even as it is now, is just massive. It's just huge.
So a grower, not a shower. Sorry, my buddy in chat said that. I couldn't help it.
Matt's going to go back. He's going to be like, I can't believe what these guys said on this podcast.
Are we going to have like a WW, like, have somebody like Walter White up in the woods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Cody.
Matt's talking about it.
Thank you for indulging me, man. I appreciate it. You've been a good sport so far.
Absolutely.
There can definitely be a time, though, when like a map is too big. I mean, a lot of times it's not always about, the size of it, but how you use it. Not to go that direction with it, but anyway, it's the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing where, like in DayZ, if you're playing with 3 other people, I mean, you're going to be lucky if you see another player, and it's not always potential where that can kind of happen, but it's a lot of times how big the map is not something a lot of times people should focus on.
Yeah, I gotta kind of jump on with that with you, and I completely agree. A lot of the time, what we're doing is the initial map we did was huge. In an early play test, you have less people in it because you're testing things like scalability. You're testing things like how long does it take for a person to log in? Are you crashing? No, great. Okay, then how many people based spatially in meters can you spawn? How long does it take for them to run to a point and find each other? What did you find on your way to run to that point? Okay, we need to sprinkle some campgrounds. What's in that campground? Does it help them survive too much? Is it too easy to survive? The thing about H1Z1 is it's about survival, right? It's about if it's post-apocalyptic, things are sparse. It's about this massive world where when players are side by side, what is the transparency to the game design? Is that obvious to the players? What that means, the virus impact, the players that's next to them, what they found, what they've gotten from the world. And none of that has to do with size. I just think you make a great point. It's how playable is the environment, and with your relationship with other characters, if we are together or playing a part, what is that experience like? And that's really where a lot of the dev is right now, because you're right. It can get too big, where quite frankly, you can just run for forever and not really do any meaningful gameplay things as a player.
Welcome to DayZ as a noob. Yeah, pretty much. No, like seriously, that's a great point, because you can literally. My first time playing DayZ, I got turned around, lost my place in a large area, and just ran through trees and fields for 2 hours. And I was sitting here like, this is the dumbest game I've ever played in my life. I didn't even see a zombie. Like seriously, it was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
That's good.
I've
It's great
played
to know you guys are thinking of that.
I played on
Yeah.
a full 40-person server on DayZ in Chernerus, and you can literally run around for hours with a full server and not see a single person. And even see less zombies because they just don't happen to be there. But I mean, PlanetSide 2, I've been playing a bit of that lately, just trying to get used to the engine and sort of get a feel for it. And although there's a much larger scale, because there's literally hundreds and hundreds of people at any one time on one server, even though the maps are so huge, I guarantee you only maybe 50% at most of that map is being used at any one time. So
Yeah.
there's still only a certain focus point where the players want to be, and there's all this other stuff that just may as well not be there because it's
No,
not
you're-
really being used.
You're totally right, and PlanetSide 2, you make a great point. I was a character lead on PlanetSide 2 as well, and it's really funny when you start to look at the relationship of characters in pixels. I'm start doing like super nerdy talk again, but when you start to look at like different monitor sizes from 17-inch to 30, and you start really getting down to the science of what you see as a player on these massive maps that we do, it is really about getting the game player really relevant information that is meaningful to him in his decision making. And that's where a lot of the science of what we do happens. It's really about what is the most optimal, enjoyable player experience in this large setting in context to the survival game you're making. And that's why I really liked this point earlier about you can make the biggest maps in the world, but if there's nothing to do there and you're looking at your watch or you're feeling guilty about playing for an hour, as developers, we failed you. So a lot of our time is, if you looked at our internal feedback and notes, you would realize how relevant what you guys are talking about is, because you'll see things like, well, I went and I made this fire and it just wasn't intuitive because, and the intuitive wasn't just the recipe, it was, well, just going through the steps of making the fire could have been easier. So I can get into the puzzle side of it and the recipe side of it and spend less time in the decision tree with the UI. So I think you guys are making really good points about certain things should happen when the game's in your hands that you never have to worry about because they really equal a bad player experience. And then that makes people kind of disconnect or need a friend to help them get through this bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage stream sniping.
Yeah, right. We love
those
that.
lonely nights and those 2-hour jogs. Just let them know what server you're in. Things will get pretty hectic real quick.
And just talk to Bike Man about that, huh? But no, you bring up a really good point because one of the things with DayZ being a good example, all the experienced players know exactly how to get to the good areas.
Yes.
And then you have people that just start the game that again end up like me, wandering around for 2 hours, having no idea where they are, finding nothing, like literally not even a single item to pick up, nothing to do, no zombie. So it really is the kind of thing where, if you don't spend time on the game, you have a bad experience. And first impressions are everything these days. When you have so many options of games to play, if you don't have a friend telling you to keep going or a good experience yourself, you're just going to move on. You're going to go find another game. So no, it's really good. You guys, you really I'm impressed at how advanced you guys are thinking about this. It's awesome.
Yeah, we have a tendency of a lot of game developers internally. You have a lot of pretty detailed, specific conversations for sure. It's pretty interesting stuff going around the studio for sure on any given day.
All right, Matt, here's another question for you directly from Kyoshin. Do you prefer sculpting digitally or traditionally? I see a few busts behind you. How often do you do a maquette, and if any, before starting on a model or sculpture?
A lot of the stuff that I do, I'll sketch it traditionally first on a computer. I come from traditional art, obviously, with the illustration background, but I've moved into digital a lot because you don't have to wait for the canvas to dry, which is really great for deadlines. But now I'm reversing back into taking digital sculpt into 3D printing and then taking the 3D print and getting back to traditional sculpting. So it's a pretty amazing time to be an artist because you're getting a chance now to go full circle with stuff to where you can take it in a ZBrush like you see me doing now, where I'll sculpt it What you guys are basically watching me do right now is, since I come from traditional sculpting, I'm applying the color and I'm applying the sculpt at the same time, because color is so much more powerful in your emotional tree than the underlying detail. Like the perfect example is if you look at his rib cage, you just see color. It looks like depth, but really what you see is color, fleshiness that makes you think that you're looking internally. But what's cool now with the 3D printing, to answer this question about sculpting, is I get to do it in 3D, and then I get to sculpt it in real life and airbrush it, which is awesome. Check this out. So this is
so
funny.
excited.
He asked me. Look at this. So let me see if I can get this up. This is my Iwata HP7. Anybody who knows about Iwata, this is the top of the line airbrush.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
It's been sitting in my drawer for 5 years.
Oh.
So now that I'm getting a 3D printer, it's coming back out
Yep.
of the drawer, which is awesome.
That's great. Let's see. Another question here going on. Another one from... oh, wait. No, okay. King, well, this is a good question because I've been wondering about this myself. How much customization will the players have on their character?
Right now, with the stuff we're talking about, you'll have a pretty decent amount of customization. Things you're seeing in other games like Daisy and Rust and stuff, where you can actually go in and you can find items in the world. You can customize specific regions. You'll have control of your upper or lower body, for instance. So you're going to be able to control the way your character looks specifically in a game.
Like Black Desert level.
What's Black Desert? Is that like insane?
It's insane. It's a Korean MMO that's coming out that you can like adjust the amount of lip gloss on the character's mouth, and it's like you could probably spend 4 or 5 hours in character customization. So
oh my gosh,
it's crazy to the point where I just don't know how they do it. All right, so question from DJ Fingus: are you considering dark blood or light blood?
If he's asking about specifically the way I'm dressing the characters with blood, it kind of goes back to that earlier discussion we had about how, at what point did this zombie attack somebody? He's going to have more wet blood. If the zombie's more aggressive and has had more success attacking people, he's got more wet blood and more dry blood. And again, the detail goes even to the level of the amount of blood on him tells the storyline about what happened before he attacked you. So on Fred, he's got damp blood on the front of him, but Bob's going to have more wet blood because he's got the entry wounds and because Bob's been busy. So I'll take the specular up on Bob, so when it's wet and rainy, he just looks nasty. Gotcha. And what it'll also do is it'll let you draw contrast between the characters. So it kind of depends on, as you do each character, you basically are bringing up different detail in each one, so that, again, when you look at them collectively, you just see all this detail. It just becomes overwhelming. So I'm looking forward to when we have like 5 or 6 different zombies in there, and everybody's got on these, from an algorithmic standpoint, all these different type of clothing, because it's just going to look like all these different zombies attacking you with different degrees of blood and gore, which is the good stuff.
This is from a friend of mine, Endless Illusion, who's been helping me make an Omid bobblehead that we're going to have 3D printed, and he's a great modeler. So if you need any modelers on your team, Matt, maybe this would be a guy you could hire.
Is that
awesome?
what we
He lives
need?
like 5 minutes away from you too, so
Do we really need another Omid bobblehead? Is that really what we need?
This was my idea before they started making them at Curse. You guys. Anyway, so Endless Illusion asks, do you guys use base models with UVs already set to save time?
That's an outstanding question. While I'm creating all the base characters, the answer is no. But after I get through all my base characters, like when I get a good female head, a good male head, yes. But what happens on some of these is I find it's actually better to just have a new set of UVs and have a completely fresh model to make sure that when I do Ivan, for instance, I wanted Ivan to kind of look like, he's seen some things, some bad things, kind of like Rick looked all bright-eyed and sunny at the beginning of the show when he woke up out of the coma.
Yeah.
He looked sickly, but he didn't look evil. And then you watch him at the end of this year, and Rick has just jacked some people up. I mean, he just looks dark. Like, if you ever saw him in prison, you'd stay away from Rick. So it's like, if you do some where you want that good old boy look to him, But the reason I'll go and do new UVs and a completely new character is because I want to completely change the way that character looks. Like one of the characters I'm doing now, without giving away too much, is he's a little more heavy set, because I get crazy when I see characters always looking flawlessly gym perfect in games.
Yeah.
So this one will be
like me.
A real size person, but he'll still look like a tough guy, right? So he can still be tough and badass, but at the same time, so for things like that where I'm pushing detail to different places, he'll get a new UV set.
It's so crazy. I was like this close to asking you that earlier about play when they were talking about the female player models. I almost said, well, what about an overweight female? What about an overweight man? Like, what about, because I never see, you almost never see the typical, you always get that muscular, well-to-do guy.
One body type and they're done.
I'm glad you
I know.
said that.
It's so annoying. It's just when you're talking about the realism and immersion. It's gone. If everyone looks exactly the same, it's gone.
Well, the big guy, he obviously has to run slower than the other zombies, so then you have to factor in that, right? And then here comes
technically in a game like ours, where eating and stamina, and taking damage and all that stuff is relevant. Not necessarily. It's kind of funny. I think about when I was like in track and field, one of the fastest guys out there was 25 pounds heavier than anybody out there, and that guy could literally outrun everybody in a quarter mile. He just flew like the wind, because who knows, in this future he might be eating right. Actually, he might have more food. He might have more water. So now you let the players create the storyline. Just try to give them believable characters.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a fat governor.
With a bunny head on a stick, dual wield.
With a bunny head on a stick. As we decided, we created a weapon in here. It's to infect other players. You tie a dead zombie rabbit to the end of a stick and you hit someone with it.
You have all the pieces there. You guys have already announced that we can harvest parts off animals.
There you go.
Can craft items. You can cut down wood for a stick. I mean, we're basically building the game for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it bluntly. We're making the game.
Matt, I'll do
Wood
one,
stick
I'll do
plus
one more.
severed bunny head equals best weapon
I'll let
in
you
any
have
game.
that idea for free. You don't even have to
It's
pay
even
me.
for free.
That's
Good guy, Ello. Good guy,
And
Ello.
you know what? Reddit gets no credit. You guys get the credit.
Oh yeah.
Just put us. You know what? Just put us in the credits. That's fine.
You know what? Why don't just go ahead and make a character that looks like it's good. It's good.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's actually a beanie that we just finished that it's the same style of beanie that you're wearing. That's actually.
So
Yeah.
Co is going to be in the game. Can you have an
That's
epic beard?
what I
You can
heard,
murder Coe.
and I will be disappointed if it doesn't happen at this point. It needs to be black with a red stripe and then a white one, and we're good. We're good.
And can you make his beard like half gnawed off, like a dog chewed off half of his beard or something?
No, but it'd be awesome if we could finally have a guy with a beard in the game. I think that would be great.
Would be good.
That
Okay.
blew in the wind and
Yes.
and when it rained, it shined.
Like Tress
yeah, we
effects.
need all environmental effects
Shot lasers.
with a
shoot
fist
lasers.
that came out too. If we got hit.
If you don't have an axe, you can just use your beard if it's long enough to cut down a tree.
I love it. I love
There you
it.
go.
Now I just need the engineers to give me a good hair shader.
Cole will drive all the way over there and let you scan him.
I'm telling you, our graphics engineer just jumped out the front window into oncoming traffic.
Like, no.
A real-time hair shader. Good luck with that.
Yeah. We're going to be wrapping up in just a few more minutes, guys. I'm going to try to get through some of these questions. I'm going to try to stick to the ones, I know there's a ton of them in here, but I'm going to try to stick to the ones that are more relevant to Matt. So I apologize. There's a lot of really great questions, and we'll try to save them up and maybe ask him on another show or something. But actually, there's a question here from Quigs86. Can we have some bearded zombies?
The answer to that is that's definitely something I'm planning on doing. Whether I get that early out into the tree, early out or not, that's definitely the answer to his question is yes.
Cool. All right, so this one is from Lazenby12. How much do the perceived shortcomings of other games in this genre enter into your team's decision-making? You've spoken about the great aspects of the genre that inspire you, but what about the other stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, when it comes to the other games, one of the things that we talk about internally a lot is it's for us as game developers, and going back to the theme of being artists, we have a tendency not to look at other games and go, oh, that game sucks.
Yeah.
We actually have a tendency of looking at games and going, wow, look how much they got to get working. And even with things like DayZ and Rust, and it's kind of easy to pick those games apart. It's almost like the basketball player that scores 50, but he had like 1 assist. It's like, man, the guy shoots the lights out, but he never passed anybody else, and they lost. So for us, a lot of times as professionals, we kind of look at those games and go, look how much they got right. And it's hard to be first. And I think people don't give first enough credit. So we do. We kind of look and go, man, they do this right. They do this right. They do this right. We need to have a player experience as good as what they're doing. So we kind of look at it. You look at it differently, I think is the best way to say it. You have a tendency of having a lot of respect for what others have done.
Well, and no game has been the total package. I mean, you take the building system from Rust, you take the complexity and gunplay from DayZ, you take, the zombie and realism that you guys are pitching that frankly has not really been, maybe you could say Left 4 Dead, maybe, because it does it kind of well, but not really. But there's never been a game that is the total package. Mm-hmm. It's always, just like you said, they do, everything kind of does their own thing kind of well, but no one game has really sold the whole premise. So
absolutely.
Awesome.
And I think that's why you have to always be careful. You have to definitely be humble about it, because honestly, if we weren't so inspired by some of the great movies we've seen, some of the great TV shows like Walking Dead, some of the great games like DayZ and Rust, would we be here right now? So you just kind of look at, like we were talking about earlier, nothing you do is original. It's the same in games. You do your version of that thing you really like, and you kind of hope that you screw up less than what you get right more. And then that's, you got to kind of stay rooted about that stuff.
All right, Sheeps Ahoy asks, while we're talking about rain and body looking, will we see anything like blood dripping or sliding down the body, maybe faster or slower because of the rain?
You'll see it glisten more because of the specular moving at different speeds. No, but you will see damage have a different specular reaction based on the time of day and the weather conditions.
Okay.
The shaders, the shaders are the material shaders that we use to do the stuff. Chris Lang and Jay and our core tech group put together. As somebody who comes from the Unreal Engine on DC Universe, I say this all the time. These are the best materials I have ever worked with. It's pretty amazing stuff if you look at how much you can do with them.
All right, any ideas for, this is from Simmerizer, sorry. Any ideas to release a software development kit for us to make models or maybe scripts like Valve's Workshop?
We'll have Player Studio where you can make in-game assets, but as far as like open source and stuff like that, I don't think anything has been planned or announced for that. No, I think what we have talked about publicly is that we'll have player servers where they can dictate some of the conditions based on what we allow them to and stuff. But as far as like making the code open source stuff, I haven't heard anything or see that happening now.
Okay. Real quick, I guess you can go in this one real quick. Monkey Overlord asks. Question for Matt. Can you take us through the story of a zombie you recently created? I'm curious how much thought you put into some of your most thought-out models.
I mean, the best example is probably Bob. And to me, even before they had names, Bob and Fred were neighbors. And the two of these characters, if you look at their clothing, it kind of says something about them regionally. It's kind of like Midwestern clothing, which is, to me, can always be anywhere USA, whether you look at the transient population of California, or if you look at the up city or fast-moving paced East Coast nature, or Chicago, which is really north of the Midwest. These guys knew each other. To me, they're brothers, and something horrible happened. And the only complexity you don't go into was who got infected first, and did Bob bite Fred, or was with Bob specifically, the character I'm working on now, the damage states that he has is because he was actually attacked by an animal. The animal didn't actually have the virus, but when he took damage and started to die, at some point, the other guy, Fred, just left him to die. So he started to get attacked by other zombies where he started to take bites. And if you start looking at his clothing and stuff like that, you'll notice he's almost taken no damage in the back, and there's very specific reason for it. To me, this character died tragically. And Fred had to make a really tough decision about would he stay for Bob, and they both die, or would he run for his life? Fred ran for his life. So what I like at that point is really to let the viewers make the decision from that point. Did Bob bite Fred? Did Fred get infected later? How did Fred get infected? were they close to each other and then found each other again in an undead state? So you just want to take the storyline up to a certain degree, and then let the decision tree happen, organically with the players.
They're zombie besties. It's official.
They're zombie BFFs.
All right, I guess this could be the last one here. We'll ask two more. Okay. Deaththirst says, since 3D printing is now available and Matt's airbrush is ready to spray, any chance on buying or giving away any real models made throughout the game creation later on?
Oh, like merchandising and stuff?
Or maybe giving them to streamers to give away.
Hey, tweet the crap out of Smed. Maybe we can start doing some giveaways.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
Yo, Smed, what up?
There it is.
Send us some merch.
Hit up Jay Smed.
We did talk with, at least I did when we were in Boston, talk with Tayano about possibly doing some kind of a streamer item. And then last week, Clegg said it would be better if we had more of a sticker that we could put, it's like not a real sticker, but you would basically say Co would have his Co sticker that they could put on all of his players on their t-shirt or something. And I would have like the Geek Domo guy, and I could put it on all my characters, the friends and stuff like that, give those away as streaming items. How hard would it be to make the rabbit head on a stick for us to give away as a streamer-only item?
Well,
Wow.
I think killing a rabbit, cutting off his head, and putting it on a stick is the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how do you get past the smell when you FedEx it to all the people who won?
No, I'm talking about virtual.
Let us worry about that.
Yeah.
Yes,
You just
You're
make
right.
it happen, Matt.
You're
Let
right.
us worry about the details.
I'm over-analyzing this whole thing.
You're definitely overanalyzing the rabbit on a stick.
There is such thing as cold storage transport,
Hey, listen, you remember that guy, Matt, we interviewed when we brought up the rabbit on a stick, man? He really took it to the next level. Like,
Right.
I remember that guy.
Well, you know what it says tomorrow? Sony's
There's that
sending
passion.
out a rabbit head on a stick.
Yes, absolutely. I'm okay.
I
with
was
it.
thinking more virtually in-game, like a model of it, and then we could give it away as an item that way. But
Be a
it's
dream
okay.
come true.
Yeah. All right. This is the last question from H1Z1 Jane, who has a whole Twitter account devoted to Jane being, I guess, the first zombie girl. And I don't know if this is a boy or a girl who's doing this, but he or she have drawn a bunch of artwork for H1Z1 Jane, and if you get a chance to check it out sometime, I recommend doing that. What has been created or planned for character models and textures where fire burning is concerned? Because we can set people on fire, we can set zombies on fire, we can set rabbits on fire. So
That's right in there with the damage state stuff that we were talking about earlier. That stuff that we're working on now. Right now, you're not able to draw a damage state, with the character looking darker or changing their texture or material. So it's really a lot of that stuff is going to get sold through particles, which is basically you catch on fire, you give off ambers, you give off smoke, and then really what happens at that point is ragdoll takes over and the character dies. A big part of the reason you do stuff like that is because it's really about overhead and the number of instructions you can handle per second in games to get a good frame rate and to get a good game experience. And you really want to make decisions about where to push the tech to have a great gameplay experience. And really, how many times does somebody look at that burnt up character, or would they rather have another shirt, or would they rather have, physics be really good on a Jeep? So I'm trying to say in the simplest way, it's about prioritizing really meaningful gameplay decisions and being very careful about how much vanity you give with immersion.
okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to go
I'll say
around the room.
real quick, actually.
Yeah.
I have somebody who needs one more question answered.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay? Sorry.
Yeah, by all means. No, I didn't see it on the sheet, so I just...
Yeah, my
Way
bad.
to mess
No,
up
it's okay.
the whole podcast.
It's okay.
Hello.
God damn it.
Oh, no!
Oh,
Kermit the
That's
Frog
extra
here.
creepy.
Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Will there be any undead frogs when H1Z1?
I think there should be undead everything.
Right.
I've even seen the Twitter. I've had people tweet me about zombie beavers, but
Yeah, zombie
Since this
birds,
is-
yeah.
yeah, I've seen.
Zombie
I'm
Beavers?
more interested in frogs, but I guess that all animals should be treated equally.
What would Miss
I-
Piggy think about that?
I was gonna say, wouldn't Kermit? Wouldn't Wouldn't Kermit be more worried about zombie pigs rather than other zombie frogs?
Would definitely.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, zombie pigs would eat frogs.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, for taking the time to answer this.
Hey, I grew up watching you on TV. I'm your biggest fan. Oh, and I took my kids to see your latest movie, by the way.
Oh, please don't. It's a piece of shit.
No. Kermie, I actually think you should have had more screen time, and the movie would have been better.
Well,
And I'm not sucking up.
There was two of me. So.
I knew which one was really you, the one without the mole.
It was like a Mary-Kate and Ashley kind of situation. Have a good one, Matt.
You too, Kermie.
And on that bombshell.
I actually have a very serious question. What can we do to get you on the show every week, Matt?
Yeah.
Seriously, dude, this has been more fun. Like, this has been amazing. The depth of the answers, the information, like, this is pretty awesome.
But how much work did you actually get done?
I know. You kept saying at the beginning, like, it's so great, I can work while I do this, and you've just been like giving great answers the whole time.
Check this out. So while we're doing this whole section of his body right here, and this is legit, I'm done with this whole area right here.
Wow.
Nice. I like his pretty pink fingernails.
Yeah,
they look so pink on the stream.
Check it out. Check out this. Look how nasty his fingernails are. It's hard to get really close to these things. But then you go to the underneath side of his hand, and like you can see like areas right here are where I have to darken in the veins as the infection spreads.
Oh, nice.
So the idea is, the fun thing about doing creatures like this is, man, you can just let your imagination go nuts.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, real quick, let's go around the room. Then we'll come back to you, Matt, because I got something else I want to talk to you about before we hang up here. But Skyla, tell us about your stuff. Who are you? What's going on?
My name is Skylatron. My name is not Skylatron. My name is Skyla, but I go by Skylatron on the internets. I do social media for Tenton Hammer, and I also stream over at Skylatron, and you can find me as Skylatron everywhere.
Everybody follow
real quick,
Skyla.
while people are introducing themselves, if one of my mods could link their streams as they go, please. Would appreciate that.
Yep. All right, Mr. Co Carnage.
Hi, I'm Co. I'm a full-time Twitch streamer. You can find me at twitch.tv/CoCarnage, playing new MMOs, new games. I've got a Watchdog all day coming up. Going to be doing a lot of H1Z1, a lot of WildStar, all sorts of fun stuff. So, yeah, twitch.tv/CoCarnage. Hope to see you there. Come say hi.
Awesome. Mr. Ellohime.
Pretty much mimicking Co here. Gonna be what? Not mocking you. I'm Co. No. I'm gonna be playing a lot of WildStar, probably giving that a shot at release. Obviously, Watch Dogs as well. H1Z1. I'm looking into maybe some Tropico 5, I believe it is. I might try that out a little bit, and I've got to finish my run through, my second run through of Wolfenstein tomorrow. I start at 3 a.m. on this channel, and I really want to say I appreciate everybody who showed up today and came and hung out. This is phenomenal numbers for this time of day for me to stream. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Stockus.
Yes. Sergeant Stackers, Sergeant Stackers on Twitch, at Sergeant Stackers on Twitter. Follow me and follow the Bearded Warriors, which we are a conglomerate of. More powered for the beards. Going to be getting into Chivalry now that I've got that and can play on Australian servers, seeing as I can't play with the Americans because I have a ridiculous ping and I'm getting my head lobbed off before I even see them. So, which happens, but you know. You live with it. So I'll be getting into that a lot more and ramping up for the launch of the DFM for Star Citizen and also H1Z1 when it comes out in when is it coming out, Matt?
Yeah, real quick.
We don't know.
No, I just thought I could get you off guard. I thought I'd get you to cough it up.
No,
Nice try.
They would slaughter me at the front door if I said anything.
No worries.
Matt would come into a box of his stuff and a pink slip, pretty much.
We'd be taping.
Hey, you get Matt's head on a stick in a FedEx.
I was going to say, we'll be taping bits of Matt to a stick instead of a rabbit.
Matt, if that happened, everyone on my stream and co-stream, I'm pretty sure everyone's stream here, we would take care of you. We would make sure you were.
Get him.
You'd be set. You're good.
Redeem me.
I'm actually looking for some character artists on my game.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Geek Domo. I've been playing a lot of Elite Dangerous the last couple of days. I'm kind of slowing down with Arcade myself. Ramping up. There's so many games coming up on the 29th of May. I don't know what the hell happened. All the developers just decided to get together and just dump 15 different brand new awesome mega games around the 29th of May. So you can follow me over on my channel, Geek Domo, right here on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and all that stuff. All right, so Mr. Matt Broome, excellent guest tonight, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, that was fun.
Probably one of the best guests I've had on any of my podcasts in the year that I've been doing podcasts. You have been like the best guest that has had the most.
Hey, thanks. Maybe it's all my years of watching Leo Laporte, the Twitch guy stuff.
Oh, yes. I love Leo. I met him once at CES, yes.
Yeah, that stuff is awesome.
Yes, so excellent. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. Okay, so before we let you go, do you have anything you want to talk about maybe that has to do with some paper? Maybe with H1Z1? Can we talk about that?
Well, I could talk about a little. I mean, right now we're internally trying to work out the details to do a H1Z1 comic. Mm-hmm. So that is something that me, Smed, and the marketing, we're just kind of working out all the details to. So hopefully soon I can have an announcement about that and how we're going to put it out there. But that's something I'm super excited about because you don't have any polygon budget when you draw comics.
Right.
No.
So you can just kind of do whatever comes to mind, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then, hold on. I've got to absolutely whore myself out for some Twitter followers.
Oh, my God, yes.
Do it. Do it.
Put your Twitter up on the screen, on the Google Plus screen. Put your Twitter up there in big letters. Just.
What is it? Hold on a second.
I think it's...
How do people ever even remember what their Twitter name is? And as a matter of fact, one of the things I have to say that was funny was you actually apologizing to the guy for saying his Twitter name wrong. That is absolutely excellent.
Me?
Yes, that is incredible to me. Okay, it's H1Z1 _ Broome or at Broome1. I don't know which one of those things they follow.
Let me see.
Yeah, let's take a look. It's in a book. It's Reading Rainbow.
At Broome1 or I think it's at H1Z1. What was it again?
H1Z1 _ Broome. Or is it at
Broome1? At Broome1 is your actual... If people search that, they'll get you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So everybody here, please go follow Mr. Broome over there.
Here, I'll post it in the chat. Give me like 2 seconds. Oh, look at you, Rockstar. Almost 3K followers. Let's guys, if you have enjoyed Matt's interview here and how much depth he has given to every single answer, I think that he has been a phenomenal interviewee. Please give him the courtesy of following on Twitter. It'd be really appreciated. So, saying followed all right across the board. So there you go, man.
Do it.
Hey, you guys, this was fun. This is the first interview I've ever done out of my home office.
Well, we all work from our home offices, so
this is awesome.
We can appreciate that.
Hey, so Matt, we'll see you next week.
No, seriously though, Matt. When we get a little bit closer to release or something like that, we'd love to have you back another time.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, man. You guys are a lot of fun.
All right. Cool. Okay, everybody. So thanks a lot for watching. We will have this up on our own YouTube channels, Twitch channels. This is fair game for everybody who's here, including you, Matt. If you'd like a copy of this, let me know, and I'll show you how to download it. You can put it up on your own stuff or whatever.
Awesome.
But yes, thank you so much. And this will go up on Reddit tomorrow probably. So please help us out because Reddit does not like our H1Z1 podcast.
No, they don't.
They hate us.
Did they really?
Yeah, we get downvoted like off the front page in like 30 seconds after putting up. There's a couple of people that really have this hard on for us, our show. So, yep, there it is.
This is to all the Reddit people who make it to the end of the video. We just want to love you.
They won't make it this far because they downvote it within 10 seconds of posting, so they didn't obviously watch it at all. It's just.
I'll play Barry White and I will make love to you next to a fire.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now.
And I'll watch.
And I'll watch in the corner.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Matt, you just got 150 new Twitter followers there, Matt.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
You can do better than that, Vikings.
Yeah, Vikings!
Come on.
Do it.
Domo tribe!
I want to see blood and Twitter follows.
Don't do that. Don't stop it. Stop.
Close to each other.
Stop. No,
Which
stop,
are
Ello.
basically the same thing.
I did that one day where I spammed my own channel and I got banned from my own channel for 8 hours.
Yeah, I know. I know the limit of how many times I can do that because it's happened.
I want to stop you before you kept going. All right, well, let's stop it tonight. All right, thanks a lot, guys. We will see you all very, very soon next week. Hopefully. Oh, where are we going next week? Is it your turn?
Sure. I
did it last week because
I did it like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So
Ello didn't do it that 1 week, so I think it was So it's Co's turn next time.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good night. We'll see you next week.
Fun time.